What's going on, Sooner Nation? Oklahoma today, they played a football game in Norman, and the Sooners come up over the Auburn Tigers 24-17. Brent Venables wins a close game, which is something Oklahoma fans have been craving to see Brent Venables do. Just got home from the game, so of course we got to talk about it, and I want to hear what your guys' instant reaction thoughts were. So jump in the comments below, let me know what you guys think, and if you're new to the channel, this is where I ask you guys to hit that like and hit that subscribe button so you're not missing out on any Oklahoma football content. But the Oklahoma Sooners win a close game, 24-17. And this game felt very different from last year because last year you needed Sooner Magic to show up and help you win the game. You needed a Kip Lewis pick six to put Oklahoma over the top. But today, you were able to lean on your offense, which is not something Oklahoma was ever able to do last year outside of the Alabama game, and go down the field and win you a football game. That's exactly what they did. Now, technically, the defense were the ones that won the football game. They got the stop at the end that kept Auburn from driving down the field. But if it wasn't for John Mateer leading that offense down the field when it was 17-16 and taking what was I think like a 4 or 5 minute drive and getting Oklahoma up 22-17, this is a very different conversation that we're having today. And, I think a lot of people are going to want to focus on some of the negatives around the offense. But I think today we just need to focus on Oklahoma is 1-0 as they're preparing to take on Kent State here in 2 weeks and then heading to the Red River right after that. You are 1-0 in SEC play. I think they can go 2-0 before they really hit the back half of their schedule. And this is something that we're going to talk about a little later. So just make sure you guys stay tuned later in the week for that. Oklahoma is now a team that you have to start talking about potentially getting to Atlanta and maybe winning an SEC title, because this Auburn team was not the Auburn team of last year. This was not a Peyton Thorne that was just known for turning the ball over. This was not an Auburn team that had troubles at times getting their offense going, and defensively was kind of a mystery on what you were going to get. This is an Auburn team that has probably a top 20 defense in the country. They have a top 10 NFL draft pick on their defensive line. And not to mention, I got to give props to where they're due to Hugh Freeze and the staff. Yeah, didn't protect Jackson Arnold very well today, but Jackson Arnold made some damn good throws for Auburn. Like, Cam Coleman is an absolute dude. And this Auburn team throughout the rest of the season and next year is going to be an insanely hard team to beat. And I'm glad Oklahoma doesn't have to play them anymore, hopefully, because I don't think Auburn's making it to the SEC championship. But Oklahoma finds a way to win this game, and the story has got to be defensively. Our Mason Thomas is out the first half of the game, and I don't think anybody could have guessed that Oklahoma's defense in the first half would have 7 sacks. 7 sacks in the first half, or maybe it was 8. And then our Mason Thomas comes out in the second half and immediately in the second play gets that sack from Jackson Arnold. If you guys haven't seen the picture, go over to my Twitter, check it out, because Oklahoma football tweeted out a photo of that, and our Mason Thomas pretty much just jumping on him and bear hugging him. That was an absolute that's an all-time photo for Oklahoma. And then you see our Mason Thomas have his impact all throughout the second half. And you're kind of asking yourself, if Oklahoma had our Mason Thomas in the first half, how much better could the defense have been? Because he ended up in the second half being, at the end of the game, Oklahoma's 7th best leading tackler with 4. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. And obviously, if you go back and you watch, there were multiple times that he was being held and things like that. So our Mason Thomas impact in the second half was felt. And I really felt like it was felt a little bit better in the passing game as well, because you didn't see Cam Coleman get as many receptions, and maybe sometimes didn't even get targeted as much in the second half. And I think that was because Oklahoma was able to scheme a little bit differently how they were defending him. But on that note, Cortland Guillory versus Cam Coleman, what a matchup. Like, Cam Coleman today shows you why he was a 5-star wide receiver and why Auburn paid so much freaking money to get him, because he was really good. And Cortland Guillory is a really good cornerback. And multiple times, Cam Coleman burned him. And, there were a lot of pass interference calls, which, yeah, could have gone. I think there were some that maybe shouldn't have been thrown, but then there was some that should be. For example, Auburn fans are going to point to the one on the trick play where Gentry had a PI. I will admit that was definitely a PI. But then 2 plays later, Cortland Guillory gets called for a PI in the end zone, which brings Auburn up to the 4-yard line. And that was definitely not a pass interference. So I do think some of these penalties kind of balance each other out. There were calls that weren't called. There were calls that were called that shouldn't have been called. I don't think anybody lost this game solely because of the refs. Auburn fans will also probably point to the what was allegedly a fumble at the beginning of the game. I don't believe it was a fumble. I do believe Satania did not have full possession of the ball. He did not make that full motion yet. Now, I know they'll complain about the one where it was originally called an incomplete pass and went to review. And, dude, he got 2 steps in bounds with control of the ball. Like, I don't understand how Auburn fans can say that one was an incomplete pass when it was clearly complete. So I don't think the refs lost this game for anybody. Ben Arbuckle showed a lot of creativity today, which I thought was really interesting. You saw the one play where you split a lot of your offensive linemen out except for 2 to wide with wide receivers. And Mateer kind of initially, that first one ran to the right. The second one was blown dead because of a tight end or because of a timeout. But then you also saw the creativity of, hey, like you saw Satania kind of like walk over to the sideline, but didn't necessarily cross over the sideline. And he was wide open, and that was Oklahoma's first score. And a lot of people are going to say that was a penalty. I guess it really just comes down to, what do you say is a action of going as a substitution? Because if Satania just walked over there and got into position, okay, cool. Like, if you took him walking over there as subbing out and then didn't pay attention to him lining up, that's on you. That's on your defense. And I get it. The Auburn defensive coordinator tried to call a timeout and they couldn't get it in. But I don't think Oklahoma did anything wrong there. I don't think that was really any sort of trickery. I think it just so happened to work that Zatania was able to walk over while Auburn was pretty sidetracked, and Oklahoma went pretty fast there. I mean, we've seen them do that. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago against Baylor. I think they did something like that. So ultimately, Oklahoma wins a really close game, 24-17. And the importance behind this was, if Oklahoma loses this at home to Auburn, the narrative around Brent Venables gets even hotter, right? A lot of people are already doubting Brent Venables, his ability to go out there and win close games, and the ability to go out there and be an elite coach. If he loses this game, there's a chance he doesn't make it out of the season. Now, for Hugh Freeze, I think a lot of people are going to say, well, he gets left on tarmac. I think Auburn played a pretty good game. And, if you're an Auburn fan, I think you got to be a little bit more patient, because that's a really good football team that you have. And, like there's a couple coaching mistakes here and there, but what team doesn't have those? I think Auburn's probably going to be an 8 or 9 win team at the end of the year. So for Brent Venables, this was huge, because now you have a chance to basically come out of the Red River 6-0, heading into the back half of your schedule, basically matching the win total that you had last year. And there's definitely at least 2 gimme wins on that, two gimme wins on the back half. South Carolina, Mizzou, and I definitely think Oklahoma could probably grab one more in there, which would give them 9 wins. But this is starting to look like a team that can go out there and win 10 or 11 games and compete for an SEC title and make their way to Atlanta. And I think that's the conversation that we can start having right now. Obviously, I think a lot of people are going to want to have playoff conversations, national championship conversations. I want to kind of hold on those until after the Red River, after I see what we look like against Tennessee or Bama, especially if you want to talk a national championship. But, taking it game by game, taking it week by week with what we're seeing, this Oklahoma team looks really good. It's complementary across the board. And, Oklahoma is finding a lot of good things for themselves. And this offense, where although sometimes stalled out today, it's only going to continue to get better as you see connections being made and communication continue to improve. So I want to hear from y'all. Join the discussion. Let me know your guys' instant reaction thoughts to Oklahoma's 24-17 win over Auburn. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that like and you hit that subscribe button.